Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss horror. And today finally I have for you all the new releases that I'm interested in for the month of October.
It's coffee time.
As always, you know guys, I try to get these videos uploaded before the new month starts, but I've been extremely busy, like working 2 jobs and working weekends, and it's been a little bit chaotic over here. So sadly this video comes a little bit late, but I hope that you still enjoy it. And I'm gonna be talking to you about 27 new releases coming out in the month of October. Most of these, as always, are horrors or thriller books that I find interesting or that I think that you guys might find interesting. There's a couple of middle grade, some YA, and a lot of adult coming out this October. So we're gonna go through them and let's see what these books are all about. Also, I've changed these videos now to sitting down and just chilling with you guys, letting you know the releases. And I think I might do in the future more kind of like relaxed videos in which I just choose some horror topics to discuss with you guys, because I've always wanted to do those. So we might get to those in the future. But now for today, we have here the new releases. First of all, we have a compilation of short horror stories, and that is If Only, A Heart, and Other Tales of Terror by Caleb Stephens. And this is 13 tales about what happens when we open up to strangers, to others, and we let them into our lives. So this is a really interesting concept, and I love that idea because a lot of times in horror, I see characters that are perhaps a little bit too trusty with people that they've just met, or maybe they thought they could trust somebody and then it turns out they couldn't. So this is a really interesting topic, so I am intrigued about the stories. And we move on with more short horror stories. This time we have The Black Maybe, Liminal Stories by Attila Veres, and this is the first time I believe that these 10 selected stories have been translated into English and are available. The stories are supposed to be really thrilling and even include a lot of black humor as well. So if this is something that you are into, and also short horror stories are actually great for spooky season, because then you can read one every day and kind of get that spooky vibe just every night before you go to bed. Now we go to the middle grade that I'm excited about, and I actually have this one on my Kindle, so I think I'm gonna read it in October if I can, even though I already posted my TBR pile and it's a little bit daunting. But I forgot about this one, to be honest. Full disclaimer, I forgot, and I really want to get to this one, and that is The Twig Man by Sana Rasool, and this is a spooky middle grade, and I'm just so excited about this one, you guys. So we follow Ari, and a year ago his older sister basically ran away, or that's what people believe, but Ari knows best. He knows that his sister was taken by the Twig Man, and I'm really excited because, you know, I have been a lot more into middle grade horror books, and I feel like this one is gonna be one that I will enjoy. I love horror stories in general that have to do like with the deal with some sort of creature, some sort of man that comes and takes kids, or comes and you know, hunts people, like things like that. I really enjoy it. And moving on to even more short horror stories, also the first time that these ones have been translated into English, I believe from the Portuguese this time. So for my Portuguese subscribers, you probably already know this author. So the book is called A Study in Ugliness and Outras Histórias. I probably butchered that Portuguese, but please forgive me. And it is by H. Puello, and this is adult horror. In this book, we're going to learn that the dead, such as the memories, are always a little bit closer to us than we thought. And I think it has a lot of stories about ghosts and hauntings and stuff like that, so if that is what you're into, you might want to check these ones out. Now the next candidate is one that I already put on my list, because this one says it's mixed between Scream and The Shining, so I was like, yes, please sign me up for that one. And that is basically Curse of the Reaper by Brian Macaulay, and this is adult horror thriller. It literally says this is a horror book, like a page-turning horror story about an aging actor that is haunted by the slasher movie villain he brought to life. And I'm like, yes. Double yes, it checks all the boxes for me, and this is one that I'm so excited about. I'm also terrified I'm not gonna enjoy but I still really want to read this one. So we follow basically an actor whose biggest role was this villain in an 80s slasher movie, and after that basically his career didn't really go much places, and now all he basically is good for is just to sign autographs from that era of his life. And apparently that villain is going to come and hunt him, and I am just so excited. It is also a debut novel, so I'm excited to try something also by an author that I do not know. And this being a slasher, you know, I love the genre, so I don't know if you guys have already had an early copy of this, but if anybody has, please let me know if you enjoyed it. The next one is perfect for people that love small towns and secrets, even though don't we all love that drama on small towns about secrets and people hiding stuff from each other. So this book is called The Cursed Earth by D.T. Neal, and this is adult horror. Now this one is set in the woods in Pennsylvania, but this one is a little bit more complicated to find its audience, I guess, because this is weird cosmic horror, so it is a smaller niche of people that might enjoy this book. It is cosmic folk horror, so you know, there's just a lot of things going on for this one. Particularly for me, I think this one might be not my cup of tea, but I know that a lot of people are looking for this type of books that don't come across, you know, they don't come across them so often. So if you're one of those people, you know, this is a new release that you might want to check. Now we have another book that is set on a small town full of dark secrets, and that is It Rides a Pale Horse by Andy Marino, and this is another adult horror. So we follow siblings, and one of them basically left town and became really famous, like a famous artist, and then came back to his hometown to settle down, and he's kind of like a hero in this small town. Everybody loves him, he's friends with everybody. But his sister Betsy is a different story. She's a little bit more eccentric. So when he goes to deliver one of his latest art pieces that he has sold, he gets a weird video of his sister being kidnapped. So that is all I know. And I really am intrigued about this and the cover. Will this be one of those horror thrillers that it is amazing, or will it be one of those that it is predictable? We don't know, but we still want to get the book. Then we have another book that sounds fantastic, and the synopsis is not telling us too much, but it's telling us enough to have me intrigued. So this is called Jackal by Erin E. Adams, and this is an adult horror thriller, and we are in a town in which a black girl goes missing in the woods, and she's not going to be the last one that is going to go missing. Apparently there is a search, and they find one of the girls murdered, and everybody's really scared until the next one disappears because they don't know who is doing this or what is doing it, and you know, what is their basically the reason for selecting the victims. So I don't know, this sounds like a cool investigation, and we don't know exactly what is kidnapping these girls or murdering them. So I'm just really excited. You know, small town, woods, somebody taking girls, I'm all for it. Also, apparently they realized that all of these years, all the girls that have gone missing, they were all black girls. So, you know, all girls or black. What is the reason behind this? We'll have to figure it out by reading the book. The next one is a folk horror novel that has been described as a mix between The Wicker Man and Final Destination, which is a very interesting choice to mix these two together. And the book is called Loot by Jennifer Marie Thorne, and it is adult horror, even though the cover, when I saw it, I thought it might be YA or middle grade, but it's actually adult. So don't let that cover fool you. So we're in an island called Loot, and every 7th summer, 7 people die. No more, no less, always 7. Basically, the inhabitants of this island are blessed with good weather, good crops, everything is perfect, but of course, every 7 years, 7 people die. And that is more than enough for me to want to pick up this book because it sounds great, and yeah, I hope it's everything that I wish for this book, because it sounds, you know, like one of those folk horror stories that might get really disturbing, so I'm all here for it. So our next book is called Malice House by Megan Shepherd, adult horror mystery, and it is about a woman that is basically going through her father's belongings after he dies and finds something she didn't expect, which is a manuscript called Bedtime Stories for Monsters. And I really hope that, you know, she starts reading this manuscript and finds out really disturbing stuff in it. But yeah, it just looks intriguing. Everybody that, you know, finds the manuscript, finds an old book, stuff like that, I'm a sucker for those stories. Next, we have an adult horror fantasy, and it's called Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. So Rory isn't excited to go back to her hometown, and she really dreads to go back, but she finds herself having to since her sister is currently pregnant. On the way to her twin sister, she hits something on the road and she thinks it's an animal, so she gets out of the car to check out what happened, and then she gets attacked by this animal. That's all I know, but I think it has a lot of humor in it as well, so I'm really intrigued to see also what kind of fantasy part is in the story. But yeah, we will have to see. I think the cover is really cute. Then we have one that I'm excited about, and I also have a copy of this one. It is 4 novellas, and it's called Ghost Written by Ronald Malfi. And since I have enjoyed a couple of his previous works, I'm really excited to see what he does with a novella, because his books tend to be chunky. They're all at least over 400 pages long, so I'm excited to see what he does with something a little bit shorter. Then we have a book that sounds quite strange, so this might be perfect for people that are looking for something a little bit different, and that is Saturnalia by Stephanie Feltman, and this is a horror fantasy. Apparently there is this Saturn club that it is absolutely obsessed with rituals, with alchemy and the occult, and our main character Nina left this cult or this club a couple years ago, and one of the things that she received as a present when she was a member of this club was a tarot card deck, and so she uses that now to predict other people's future. That's what I know, but it feels to me like this is going to be one of those secret society books, so if you are into that, maybe you want to check it out. Now we go to a supernatural story that involves a house, so you know, one of those typical stories, and that is The Toll House by Carly Regan, and this is horror supernatural historical fiction. So we all know about all those old houses that when they're trying to sell them to you, they're like, well, there's a lot of history in this house, and that's all they tell you, but the history means a lot of bad things have happened in that house, and that's why nobody has bought it yet, okay? So our main character thinks this house is perfect for me and my son, so we're gonna move in there. But then she finds a death mask kind of hidden between the walls, and after that things change. And a lot of strange happenings are in the house. A lot of things are moving around, a lot of noises. She feels like she's being watched. She has nightmares. So this sounds a little bit like your typical, you know, haunting house scenario, but the kind of the death mask thing kind of throws me off a little bit, so I'm kind of intrigued. And who doesn't love a good haunted house story now for Halloween season? Now we have a YA horror book with queer characters that I'm really excited about. I pre-ordered this one some time ago, so I'm hoping that Amazon is not gonna mess up my order, as they do a lot of times when I do pre-orders. And I heard about this book the first time while I was in Yelk in London, and it was pitched to me as something like a supernatural, perfect Halloween story, but also mixed with Gilmore Girls or Heartstopper, and I was like, yes please. Give it to me. Also because it's Halloween themed, give it to me please. And that is The Other Ones by Fran Hart. So Sal lives in a haunted house, love that, and basically one day receives the visit of a really strange person called Pax. And Pax is also someone that loves, you know, spooky stuff and knows about the story of this house apparently, and that's why he was drawn to this house, and they start a friendship. And I believe that they together start to discover the reasons why this house is haunted. And honestly, I didn't want to read any more from the synopsis because I have this pre-ordered, and because I'm really excited to read it for Halloween, I decided not to investigate too much and just let the book surprise me. I hope that the book comes on time, because we know how Amazon screws up. Basically all of my pre-orders are always a mess, so fingers crossed for me. The next one is a spooky middle grade that I finished reading in the month of September, so it's going to be featured in my wrap-up very soon, but that is The Haunting of Tyrese Walker by J.P. Rose. And obviously I recommend this to you guys because I've already read it and it was such a fun time. So Tyrese is going through grief after losing his father, and his mom thinks that, you know, spending some time back in Jamaica, where they come from, is gonna do him some good, but he doesn't want to leave the United States. And he is not having a good time in general. He's being a little bit of a party pooper. But when he gets to Jamaica, he starts to kind of reconnect with his culture and the people there. And that was one of my favorite things about this book, is to read all about the Jamaican culture and all the different elements that the author added in the book. And it gets really spooky, gets really dark. So basically there is something that starts hunting Tyrese, obviously based on the title, something that is coming for him. So he's gonna have to figure out what this is, why is it targeting him, and he has a couple of friends there that are gonna help him to try to figure it out. And I think, you know, the more I was reading, the intense the horror got, so I was really excited. And there's even a little bit of body horror in this one, which I thought it was really cool for a middle grade. Now let's go back to some adult horror, and we have When the Night Bells Ring by Joe Kaplan. And here we are in a future in which basically the earth has turned into fire and drought, and we are living in a very bad situation. So we have our main characters that are trying to find water, and they go into a cave to try to find water, because, you know, the situation is no longer stable in Earth, which, you know, it's something that it is scary, but it is not so far away from where we might end up as a society. So anyways, they go into this cave and something really strange happens, and that's where I am excited about. I also don't know if the cave scenes are going to be really claustrophobic, because that's something that really creeps me out when people are in small spaces. The next book is about a family that is being hunted by an ancient evil, and we enjoy to read about it. So the book is called The Hollow Kind by Andy Davidson, and this is adult gothic horror. So Nellie, who is our main character, she is desperate to get out of her marriage, and she gets notice that her grandfather has passed away, but not only that, she has inherited his estate, and so she decides this is, you know, like a sign, this is the perfect time. She packs all her stuff and she runs away to this new place. Obviously, she also takes her son, her teenage son, and she runs away. So when she gets there, she realizes that this estate, you know, this farm, it's kind of like, you know, breaking apart, and there's a lot of work for her to do, but she sees this as a new beginning and a new opportunity for her. And she's so focused on those things that she doesn't see the small things, you know, like the voices, the scratches in the wall, and things start to get spooky from here. Then we have Little Eve by Catriona Ward, and this is a horror mystery, and I feel like this might be a re-release, but I'm not really sure because I saw 2 different dates on Goodreads. But nevertheless, I'm excited because I really did enjoy The Last House on Needless Street, so I do want to read more by the author, and I do have a copy of this one as well on my Kindle. I know this is a gothic tale, and I know we are in an island in Scotland where some sort of cult or society wants to bring the end of the world. What you guys are doing? Why are you messing around? We already had enough since 2020. Thank you very much. I don't want to read any more about this because I had such a good experience reading The Last House on Needless Street without knowing anything at all about the book, that I feel like maybe this is how I should approach her stories. So if you want to know a little bit more, you can check out the Goodreads synopsis. It's a little bit longer, it tells you a little bit more about what it's about. But I felt like that was such a good experience that I want to do the same with her other novels as well. Moving on to The Dark Between the Trees by Fiona Barnett, and this is another adult horror thriller. So this is supposed to be as well a gothic folk thriller, so you can also expect some folk aspects in this book. And I'm noticing, you know, a theme for 2022, and that is folk horror in October. It's funny that they do this because I have been a little bit more into watching folk horror movies, and now they're offering me all of these nice folk horror books. We are in 1643, and a small group of soldiers enter some woods, and apparently from all of the ones that go in, only 2 are ever seen again. So 17 go in, and then only 2 are ever seen again. I already like this scenario. So in the present time, we have 5 people that are trying to figure out what happened back in the day and decide to go and investigate to these woods, which is already giving me like Blair Witch Project vibes, and I'm all here for it. Now, if you are into horror poetry, there is something coming for you as well in the month of October. We have Crime Scene by Cynthia Pelayo, who, you know, I haven't read her poetry yet, but I've heard good things about her poetry. The only thing I read by her was her full-length novel, Children of Chicago, and it was okay, but I didn't absolutely love it. But I have heard that her poetry is really good, and I do want to give it a try. The next one is another release that I'm really excited about because this is a YA horror debut novel that also has queer characters, and it's called 16 Souls by Rosie Talbot. And I got to chat with her when I was in London, in Yog, and she's fantastic, she's wonderful. So obviously I really want to read this book and find out what she wrote about after meeting her, and I'm really excited for this one. You know, it's one of the ones that I am most excited about for this month of October. So we have Charlie. He's 16 years old and he lives in New York, and he's a seer. He can see ghosts, and basically that means that, you know, in a city such as New York, there's a lot of them, and most of our main characters' friends are ghosts. So if you want to read about ghosts, if you love ghost horror stories, this one is a must read for you. It's also a YA, so if you are not ready for adult, this one is the one to pick for October season for the spooky time. Next we have a book about some sort of DNA modification that went wrong. So the book is called Blood Country by Jonathan Jans, and this is adult horror. So 3 years ago, some scientists kind of like awakened some strands of human DNA that unleashed some sort of problems in the world, which is people started to become monsters, all types of them. Basically within months, every woman, man, child was turned into a different type of monster. And there is a rare survivor that is trying to fight this, but of course, can you imagine if humanity basically goes completely, you know, animalistic, and they turn into monsters and you're the only one that for some reason don't? Like, I don't think I would like to be in that position. But apparently that's where our main character finds himself, so we'll see what the poor thing has to go through in this book. Also, the dominant species in this future are vampires. So if you love vampires, I feel like, you know, this is a book that might interest you as well. And then we have a full-on adult mystery thriller for those people that don't want, you know, specifically horror, and that is Keep It in the Family by Joan Mars, which is one of those thrillers that I actually am intrigued about, and it sounds good enough to me that I would like to pick it up. So Mia and Finn are turning their house into their dream home, and then they find out that Mia is actually pregnant. But just when they think that the house is ready, Mia finds a really disturbing message which says, "I will save them from the attic." That's it. That's what she finds. So Mia's baby's born and everything, but she starts to get hunted by things in the house, and I just want to read this because it sounds like, yeah, it is mystery thriller, but there is some horror elements here, and I'm all for that. The next one is another book that sounds really intriguing to me, and that is Sebastian by P.D. Kasich. This is adult horror, and we follow a character whose mother is a really well-renowned photographer, and she always goes basically from one obsession to the next when it comes to her photography. And now she's absolutely obsessed about a doll, and basically she takes pictures of this doll all the time. So this is like a child-sized doll, and things start to get a little bit creepy here. And you know, I love dolls and things like that, so this one already sounded to me absolutely fantastic, especially if you're taking pictures of said doll. And the mother even names this doll, calls it Sebastian, and apparently this obsession is gonna go a little bit, you know, crazy. So I need to read this book. I want to know what happens with this doll. The next one is another adult horror fantasy. So there were a couple of books here in this list that are horror fantasy, which is going to be perfect for all of you out there that do want to read more fantasy, but you don't like your typical, you know, high fantasy books, and are looking for something, you know, with some fantasy in it, but also with some horror that might make that fantasy a lot easier for you to digest. So the next candidate for that is called Sign Here by Claudia Lux. So this is kind of a dark comedy, I think, about a guy that literally works in hell, which sounds really fun to me. So this is also a debut novel, and I'm really intrigued to see, you know, what our main character's responsibilities are in hell, what his duties are. I think he is trying to convince a wealthy family to sell their souls or something like that. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. This kind of reminds me a little bit to Christopher Moore books, which, you know, the humor was not always on point for me, but it's also that kind of black humor, I think, that you can expect from this one. And it might also be a lighter read if you want to read some horror or something with horror elements in it, but that is not also serious. And last but definitely not least, we have another adult horror called Beach Bodies by Nick Kolakowski. So this is a billionaire that has this luxury kind of, you know, apocalypse bunker ready with everything you can imagine just in case, so that he can get in there and save himself, which, you know, sometimes I do wonder if a lot of these rich people have like end of days bunkers. I'm pretty sure they do. Would be really interesting to know. So apparently some caretakers of this bunker that go probably regularly just to check that everything is you know, working, that all the supplies are there, they get trapped. And apparently they are going to figure out not the horrors that are supposed to be kept away from the bunker, but the horrors that are inside of said bunker. Alright guys, so these are all the books that I had on my list to talk to you guys about. Some of the releases that are coming out in the month of October 2022 for spooky season. Let me know down below what you thought about the list, which ones are on your radar now. I'm sorry if I added more books to your TBR pile. I know I do with these videos, I'm so sorry, but isn't it nice to check what's coming next? I really enjoy it to see, you know, kind of ideas, what kind of books we can see in the next, you know, month in the shelves or on your stores. So yeah, I'm really excited about some of these releases. My October TBR is already extremely stupid. I don't know why I do that to myself. So I don't think I'm gonna have time for much, because now I'm working basically nearly 2 full-time jobs, so I don't know also why I do that to myself. But I'll try to read as much as possible in October. But before I go, I wanted to mention that for the next 3 Thursdays, I will be sitting down with the absolute lovely ladies that organize the Gothtober readathon, and we're gonna do together some reading sprints. So join us to get some reading done, to get something productive done. I am so glad that I was invited to join them, because that's gonna really force me to read, because I have 0 time. And I'm so grateful that they invited me, also because the Gothtober readathon sounded absolutely fantastic, and I love that they themed it Final Girl this time. And yeah, I'm really excited. I'll be posting every week the link to the live on my Twitter, so make sure you're following me there, and I hope that you guys come and, you know, just hang out with us. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much as always for watching, and I hope to see you all in our next coffee time. Bye!